Charles. I felt sorry for him when I met him. He had come in to apply for a security position at my job site. We ran 2 guys at a time on 12-hour shifts. There were weekday guys and weekend guys. Pay was minimum wage, no benefits. It was a shitty job. You walked the perimeter of the site, stood around for hours at a time. We didn't have a security staff. You bring one in and the guards end up never leaving. They buy little TVs and drink coffee all day. Take naps. This was a sensitive site. We were putting up 40 stories in a neighborhood where the tallest building was 12. There had been community opposition, a couple protests, and a big petition. I needed guys who were willing to work to make sure that the site was secure. It's harder than you think finding them. Most people want something for nothing. They want everything to be easy. When a job is hard, they demand more money, more time off. Most people want something for nothing. They want everything to be easy. When a job is hard, they demand more money, more time off. They complain to the union reps and try to renegotiate terms. That's not the way it works. Life is hard. Deal with it. Working sucks, deal with it. I'd love to sit at home and collect a check every 2 weeks for watching baseball games and spending time with my kids. Doesn't happen that way. You gotta work for everything in this world. Scratch and claw and fight for every little thing. And it never gets easier. Never. And it doesn't end when you die. And it doesn't end until you die. Surprise. Fucking. And then, it doesn't matter. Learn to deal with that. It's the way of the world. You fight and struggle and work your ass off and then you die. Deal with that. He came in with a resume. It said his name was Ben Jones. That he was 30 years old. He was wearing a button down with the logo of a security guard school on it. My first impression of him was that he was very eager, very excited, and very serious. Very nervous. His hand was shaking when I shook it. His lips were quivering. Aside from his basic biographical information and an 8-week course at the security school, which made him officially qualified for the job, the resume was empty. I asked him where he was from, and he said Brooklyn. I asked him if he went to college, and he said no. I asked him when he left home, and he said at 14. I told him that seemed young, and he shrugged, and I asked what he'd been doing for the past 16 years. And he changed. Just a little, but he changed. And something in his eyes came out that was really sad and really lonely and extremely painful. It was only there for a second, and normally I wouldn't notice anything like that or pay attention to it or give a shit. But it was very striking, and he looked down at his feet for a moment and then looked up and said, I've had hard times, and I'm ready to work, and I promise I'll be the best worker you have. I promise. And that was it. He didn't offer anything else, and I didn't push it. I just thought to myself, 16 fucking years. What the fuck has this guy been doing? And I still think about it all the time. What the fuck was he doing? And I imagined, and still do, because of the flash of deep sadness and loneliness and pain that I saw, that whatever it was and wherever it was, it had been truly, truly awful. So I gave him the job. He was very excited, like a little kid at Christmas. A big smile, a huge smile. He said thank you about 50 times, and he kept shaking my hand. It was funny and very endearing. It wasn't like he won the fucking lotto. He got a minimum wage job walking around the construction site for 12 fucking hours a day. I put him on the 5 days a week day shift. Thought that would be best, that he'd be proud to have that position, and he was. It showed in how he did the job. He was always on time. His uniform was always clean. He never tried to extend his breaks or his lunch. He never complained. He seemed fascinated by the process of putting a building up, knocking in the pilings, setting the foundation, the construction of the skeleton frame. He asked different people questions about what they did or why they did things a certain way. He listened very intently to their answers, like he was going to be tested on it or something. He was generally the happiest guard I'd ever seen or had on a job, and he became sort of the site mascot. Everybody liked him and enjoyed having him around. He knew everyone's name and would greet everyone in the morning and say goodbye at the end of the day. There were only two things that ever seemed odd, and I dismissed them both because he did such a good job and seemed so happy. First was right after he got his first paycheck. He came and switched the address in our files to an address in the Bronx. The previous one had been in Queens. I don't know why, but I was curious, so I looked up the address in Queens. It was a state-run transition home, a place where they send men coming out of either prison, rehab, a homeless shelter, or a mental institution. I thought about looking into it more, but I had other things to worry about, and Ben seemed fine. Second thing happened one day during lunch. I had a doctor's appointment and had to leave the site. On my way to the subway, I saw Ben sitting on a bench a few blocks away. He was crying. It was the middle of the day and he had seemed like his normal self when I had seen him earlier. I did a double take because I couldn't believe it was him. But it was. He was sitting on a bench with his face in his hands and he was sobbing. The day of the accident was a beautiful spring day. It was sunny, no clouds, slight breeze in the mid-70s. A perfect New York day, not one I thought would fucking blow up. I had never had a major accident on one of my sites before, and it was a point of great pride for me. I believed there wasn't a building on earth that was worth sacrificing a life for, and I still believe it. Safety matters more than speed. Safety matters more than anything. It was one of the reasons I had been hired, because the job was a sensitive issue in the community and so many people were against it, the developer couldn't afford to have anything go wrong. Accidents are the best weapon community activists have against developers. While it would be nice to think developers care about safety, they don't. Like almost everyone else in America, developers are fucking greedy. They care about money and activists with weapons cost them money. My job was to stay on budget, stay on schedule, and keep that site safe. The skeleton was done. 40 stories of steel frame rising. We were putting in the windows, which were 10-foot by 10-foot mirror panels. We had finished the first 33 stories without any problems, and we were installing on 34. We lift 7 panels at a time, bundle them, secure them, braid them to a wire, bring them up with a crane. I'd done it literally thousands of times at job sites, and I had never had any problems. I don't know what the fuck went wrong. Still don't. We had investigators from the city, the state, and the insurance company all look at the rig, and nobody could figure it out. To this day, the cause and all of the paperwork is listed as unknown. I could call them and tell them that it didn't matter what we did that day, that no rig would have held that class, that there were other forces at work far beyond any that the city, state, or insurance company could muster. But they'd think I'm crazy. And sometimes I'm not sure that I'm not. But that's part of faith. Believing and knowing despite what other people say and despite what the world might think of your beliefs. I was on the ground, standing near a trailer which was on the edge of the sidewalk. I was holding a clipboard going over some budget numbers with one of our construction accountants. They blow an air horn right before any large load goes up, and the air horn went off. I looked up and the panels were slowly rising. We stopped traffic when we lift panels, and there were no cars coming down the street. Most of the workers were standing around talking, which is what they did. When work was halted, Ben was standing at the edge of the site, looking toward the stop traffic, ready to stop anyone who might try to get around. Our traffic controller. Normally, I would have gone back to the clipboard, but I felt something inevitable. If you can somehow feel fate, or destiny, or the power of the future, I felt it very literally, and it made me watch. It forced me to do something that I normally wouldn't do. I couldn't turn away. I couldn't not watch those panels. The panels continued to go up and they drifted a few feet, just like they always did. Like anything that heavy being lifted that high would drift. The crane was working perfectly. The rig was set perfectly. The panels were in wooden crates sealed with iron nails. At that point, we lifted and installed hundreds of them. It was no big deal, just part of our routine. Nobody was watching, and I'm the only one who saw. I saw the nail slip out of the crate. I saw the back of the crate fall. I saw the angle of the crates change. I saw them drift. I saw the panel fall out. A 10-foot by 10-foot glass panel. Probably weighed 1,000 pounds. I saw it fall. It hit him on the back of the head and shattered. There was a huge noise and an explosion of glass. Everything stopped. Everyone turned. Everybody turned. There was a moment, a long, hideous moment of silence, of never-ending fucking silence. Then the screaming started. I dropped the clipboard and started running toward him. Pulled my phone out of my pocket and called 911. There was no way he was alive. I told the operator a man had just died. From my construction site, I gave her the address. I could see the blood before I got there. It was everywhere. And there was glass everywhere. All I could hear was screaming. People were getting out of their cars, running, calling 911. And above me, for a brief instant, I saw the rest of the panels being pulled onto the 34th floor. There was no way that one should have fallen. When I got to him, I was positive he was dead. The back of his head was crushed. There was blood and something else. I assumed it was brain fluid leaking out of it. There were shards of glass embedded into his entire body. He was literally shredded, blood pouring from his arms, legs, chest, stomach, face. There was fucking blood everywhere. I couldn't really even see him. I didn't know what to do. If I should touch him, move him, try taking the glass out of his body. There was no way to try to stop the bleeding with a tourniquet, or 10 tourniquets, or 50 tourniquets. And I didn't believe in God, so I couldn't pray. I just waited for someone to come who would tell me what to do. A crowd started gathering. The other workers tried to keep them back. Silence in the distance. A group of women kneeling in a prayer circle. People still screaming. As they got closer and saw what I saw, they turned away, covered their eyes. A few vomited, and the blood kept flowing. I was kneeling next to him, and it was running around my legs, soaking my pants. I took hold of the two of his fingers where there was no glass, and I started trying to talk to him. I had no idea if he could hear me. I thought it might help if he could. It might comfort him, give him some kind of solace as he died. No one wants to die alone, even though that's how it happens for all of us, even though we pretend there's some other way. I thought my voice might make it easier, calm him, make him less scared. I can't imagine how fucking shocked and terrified he must have been if he was aware of anything. I told him that help was on the way and that he was going to be alright. I felt sick to my stomach while I said it. I could see his brains through his shattered skull, literally see his brains. I just held those two fingers and talked to him and watched him bleed away. An ambulance arrived. The crowd parted and two paramedics came rushing through with a gurney. I heard one of them say, "Jesus fucking Christ." The other said, "No way this guy's alive." They dropped their bags and went to work. They started checking him, but they didn't seem to know where to start. One of them asked me what happened, and I said a plate of glass fell on him. They checked his pulse, talked about how to proceed, leave the glass in him, get him out of here, let the surgeon deal with it if he's even still alive. He had a pulse, and they both seemed shocked. They lowered the gurney and asked me to step away. One took his lower body and one took his upper body. They lifted him onto the clean white surface. Blood streamed off his body, stained the gurney, dripped to the ground. They started back towards the ambulance and I followed them. They asked me his name, I told them. They asked where he was from and I said he lived in the Bronx. They got him into the ambulance. I asked to come, told them I was his boss, that it was my job site. They said, "Get in," and I did, and they closed the doors. I sat on a bench near the door. One of them drove. The other worked on Ben. He put on a heart monitor, wove the wires around the shards of glass protruded from Ben's body. When it was on and working, he tried to stop the bleeding from cuts without glass in them, but there were so many of them it was almost useless. The monitor stopped and the paramedic gave Ben CPR and his heart started again. I don't know how long we were in the ambulance. It felt like 10 seconds and it felt like 10 hours. And Ben's heart stopped 4 or 5 times. He died in the ambulance 4 or 5 times and the paramedic kept bringing him back. Something kept bringing him back. Once the monitor stopped and the paramedic didn't do anything, just stared and shook his head. I didn't blame him. It seemed like a lost cause. 10 seconds passed, maybe 20. It seemed like forever. I just stared at Ben or what was left of him and tried to figure out what the fuck went wrong. How could this have happened? I started saying I'm sorry, as if apologizing to a dead man would mean something. Though it seems that's how it works most of the time. We say the things that matter to people when it's already too late. Before the words came out of my mouth, the monitor started registering a pulse again. Something kept bringing him back. Something was not going to let him go. We pulled him to the hospital and they rushed him away. I followed them into the emergency room. I gave the administrators all the information I could. I filled out all of the forms as best I could. I called back to the site and asked for a change of clothes because the ones I was wearing were covered with blood. Men from the site started showing up. We were all in shock, just sat and talked about how we couldn't believe it happened, how awful it was. Media started showing up and trying to interview people. Nobody said a word. We knew it wouldn't matter if we did, that the media was going to write what they wanted to do, right, regardless of their so-called ethics and the supposed belief in truth. We just sat and waited to hear that Ben had died. We assumed it was so. Though I had seen what I had seen in the ambulance at the time, I didn't believe it was anything more than coincidence. More men from the site arrived. The crane operator and window installers came in. They were deeply and visibly shaken. I sat with them, asked what happened. They didn't know. They claimed the crate was intact, that there was no way that glass should have come out or could have come out. I told them I saw the nails fall and saw the back of the crate fall. They claimed that was impossible, that the crate was intact. There was tape around it, tape that had been applied at the factory, and it was unbroken. The crate was empty. They could tell that by its weight, but it had never been opened. I figured someone was trying to cover their ass. Someone had fucked up and didn't want to take responsibility for another man's death. Ultimately, the responsibility would have fallen on me, but it turned out they were right. The crate was unopened and empty. City and state accident investigators all agreed. The crate was fucking unopened. How the glass fell has never been explained. And Ben didn't die. Somehow he survived. More than survived. So much more. Something kept bringing him back. Something wouldn't let him go. Something or someone or I don't know what wouldn't let him die.